I am Ron Pignano, and if you don't know me, I am a scaling expert. I have scaled and started up three businesses. And what I'm going to talk about today is one of the things that I found was probably the most difficult thing that most entrepreneurs I talk with have getting over this hurdle. And this is when you hire an employee. How do I start building my team, growing the bench, and adding employees? I found that there's three specific indicators that have told me, or when I'm working with my clients, they need to recognize, when it is time to hire their first employee. Now, when we become entrepreneurs, we understand that we're going to be doing all of the work. In the beginning, you are going to be doing all of the work without a doubt. That's what's going to happen. You're going to be stuck doing all the work. You wear all the hats, right? When you start up the business, you expect and accept the responsibility to do everything. At some point, you're going to have to know it's time to scale the business. And how do I know it's time to scale the business? One of the ways I know it's time to scale the business is it starts to get to the point that things are not quite going the way I thought they were going to go. And what happens is things start getting left behind. Things start falling off. We start missing appointments. We start realizing that things are more than what I thought they were going to be. I run over on time. I find myself not being able to make callbacks. I find myself not being able to get back to the backup work or the backup work I'm doing that I find myself not having time to get those things done. And then I'm having to pick between doing the work to support the business or doing the work to build the business. So the E-Myth is out there. It's been out there a long time. I looked at the E-Myth when I was running the landscape company between 2000 and 2011. And it was about 2004, 2005 when a friend of mine first shared that book with me. And it was the first time that I really heard, the use of, are you working on the business or are you working in the business? Now, when you're working in the business tasks exceed your capability, you have exhausted your time inventory. That is the first indicator that maybe it's time to hire somebody. Now, the challenge is when it becomes time to hire somebody, I realize that when I hire somebody, I'm going to hire that somebody so that they can do the working in the business task so I can spend more time working on the business task. Now, how do I get to this decision point? How do I get to the decision point? Because there's a financial obligation, there's a financial responsibility, but growing the company and in John Maxwell's book, 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth, this book right here is probably the book that you need to be looking at, or at least some of the laws and principles that you need to be understanding. And the ones that I want to talk to you about is the trade-off, the law of trade-off, and the law of expansion. See, the law of trade-off is I am trading off, I am giving up certain things to do the things that need to be done in my business. And in the beginning, we know there's going to be a big amount of trade-off. We could all agree, right? Let me open this up here for a second. We could all agree there's going to be a bunch of trade-offs. And with those trade-offs, what's going to happen is you are going to find yourself struggling with what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And the one decision that you no longer have to make in the beginning is who's going to do it. And that in and of itself is an indicator that maybe I should be hiring somebody, because if I can look at that thing that's going on in my business and suddenly realize and recognize, oh, I can have somebody else doing this. If I trade off doing this, how can I get somebody else to do it so that I can do something else? The law of expansion. The more I expand, the more I grow, the more potential, the more opportunity that's going to come my way. Identify the tipping point. The tipping point is your workload exceeds your capacity. Now, this is not a bad thing. Actually, it's part of the abundance mindset. Part of the scarcity mindset is my fear of success. So if I have an abundance mindset and I know that I'm going to be growing the business, I'm going to do it much better. And at some point, I'm going to have to scale it and I'm going to have to start adding employees. Maybe this is a good time for me to be thinking about what are the things that I would have that employee do? What is it that I can delegate to that employee? How about things like scheduling? It doesn't matter what the list looks like until you actually find how to delegate that responsibility and you start looking for that person. That's the challenge. That's where most entrepreneurs start to get really uncomfortable. And they get uncomfortable because they don't have the abundance mindset and the belief that somebody else can do the work as good as you can or as better than you can in that specific area. When my time and my capacity suddenly are out of sync, I'm out of time and my capacity is limited and I can't do both, and I'm constantly picking between this or that, then that's probably a good time for me to start thinking about delegating some of those responsibilities. Now, how do we do it? Here's the actionable piece. How do we do it? We do it by starting out and keeping a running tab, or keeping a running sheet. And what I basically say is get a basic tablet, a piece of paper, a sheet of paper, and right across the top of the paper on the business, in the business, and write down in those columns every day. Go through as you're doing things, write down whether those are on the business tasks and in the business tasks. Most entrepreneurs, their on the business tasks outweigh the on the business tasks. And most of the time, the lack of ability, capacity to work on the business is limiting the law of expansion. You can't expand, you can't grow if you can't be super consistent about working on the business activities because you're so mired down in working in the business. Now, I get it. When we started our business, that was the fun part. If that was the fun part, write fun in the comments because most entrepreneurs are doing what they really wanted to do, working in the business. Because working on the business is usually the last thing most entrepreneurs think about. It's usually the skill they learn last or the skill they spend the least amount of time on. That's where coming in and getting a coach. See, I did this. I wasn't sure. And luckily, I had experience in building teams and managing teams and growth and scaling. And I knew that certain things I was going to have to train people to do certain things. You see, sometimes entrepreneurs are doing stuff so organically that they don't really think about building the system in order to be able to delegate it. So when we think about, is it time to delegate? We should also be thinking about the three key parts of moving things off of my plate. And I should be asking myself, here's a pro tip: delegate, automate, eliminate. With the use of technology right now, we can automate a lot of the processes and a lot of the things we could do to make us much more efficient. Time management is where the fortune is. We hear all the time in sales, fortune is in the follow up. I believe fortune is in the organization of the activities that you're doing every single day. If I have a great amount of organization, have systems and processes in place to move the customer through the journey, to move the business through the commitment and delivering on its promises, then I am going to be much more efficient. Become more efficient, I become more effective. And when I become more effective, the quality of the product significantly increases. But again, the departure is that's the fun stuff. Other stuff is not the fun stuff. How do I get to do more of the fun stuff? If you're scaling your business and you're moving up to the next level where you need to hire an employee, this is the fun part. Because the fun part is that once I start hiring employees, it's the next level of entrepreneurship. The next level of entrepreneurship is giving other people opportunities. The first level of entrepreneurship is creating opportunity for yourself, self improvement, self growth. I also, as a leader, I should be focusing on allowing other people to grow, giving other people an opportunity to develop and grow into better versions of themselves. And there's nothing more rewarding than giving other people opportunity to grow and develop within your business. Just think about when you were an employee and you had an opportunity to move up in your role, You felt better about what you were doing when you took a promotion and you advanced and you started helping other people. Just think about what happens when you do that in your own company. That's what hiring your first employee is about. So, on the first key indicator, you're at the tipping point where your workload exceeds your capacity and you need to delegate, but you don't know what to delegate and you don't know how to delegate. All right. Delegate, automate, eliminate. What do I delegate? I delegate things to people that can do the work that at least 80% as well as I can do it. And I delegate a majority and I start going down my list and I start removing the working in the business task and I assign them to a role and responsibility. It's time to delegate. It's time to identify roles and responsibilities. Here's the pitfall. Too often, entrepreneurs go to make their first hire. First hire is a hire of convenience. And they hire somebody and then they try to match the person's skills with things that need to get done. And so they're trying to create a job to match the person. But in the event the person doesn't stay, or in the event the person doesn't come in that day, we need to be able to still do those tasks, or we need to be able to delegate them to somebody else. So this is why the key to delegation, the key to delegate, automate, and eliminate is roles and responsibilities. Now, here's where take the employee through delegate, automate, eliminate, so that they can start doing the things that you were doing that you no longer need to do, so they can spend more time working in the business, so you can go spend more time working on the business. Delegate, automate, eliminate. When it comes to automate, not all things should be automated. Just because you can automate something doesn't mean you should automate something. And it's the same thing with eliminating things. Sometimes because of our time capacity, because our time and capacity are out of synchronization, what happens is we eliminate things because a result of not having time, but there were probably things that I should not have eliminated. So I want to go back over time and look at what are things that I stopped doing, especially if those things are directly related to being successful, and put those things back in the system and delegate it to somebody else to do it in their roles and responsibilities. Let's move on to number 2, the second indicator, recognizing the financial readiness of your business to sustain additional staff. This is the one that most entrepreneurs say, I can't afford to hire somebody. We should be talking about, what is your actual worth? What is your actual worth as the entrepreneur? What is your value to the business? Now, the value to your business is not the salary that you're earning. That's not how we used to equate compensation. What I'm talking about is your estimated hourly rate. As a solopreneur entrepreneur, here's how you calculate your estimated hourly rate. You take your total gross earnings for the year, what the company generated total gross, you divide it by 2080. Now, what is 2080? 2080 is what a full-time employee, 52 weeks out of the year and a 40-hour work week would normally generate. So that is what an employee would be contributing to your business. They would be contributing to 80 hours on a 40-hour a week schedule. That's what you look at as you doing the work. I know you work more than that. Trust me. I know you work more than those hours. What we're going to do is we're going to use that for the formula. Now, it takes the total gross earnings for the year. Are you ready? Let's just say the company generated $100,000 last year. Most entrepreneurs, after they've been in business, you should be able to generate six figures. Six figures works out to be just over $8,000 a month. Then you should be able to hit $100,000 for the year. We're going to take $100,000, 100. We're going to divide that by 2,080. That's how many a full-time employee would normally work. That's going to give us estimated hourly rate of $208. So we're going to use that formula because that's the formula we're going to use, saying that on an average basis, as part of the company, my work effort based on a full-time employee, if I had to replace myself 100%, total gross earnings for the year, $208. What I ask myself when I start adding people, when I'm measuring the financial readiness, is do I have activities that I'm doing in my business? Because that's what it means. What it means is if you are the only one that worked, then you have to equate it to a full-time employee, and you're using the 20/80 rule, 52 weeks is 40 hours, then you generated $208 per hour in revenue for the company. What you need to ask yourself is when you're looking at those tasks, working on the business, working in the business, how many of those working in the business tasks can you hire somebody to do for less than $208 an hour? Now, if they can do it for less than $208 an hour, which is most employees, then that's how you buy back your time. You're going to buy back your time by hiring an employee, even if they were doing it at $20 an hour, $25 an hour. You're going to understand what also goes into hiring that employee. And you're going to say, wait a second. Now, suddenly, I have an employee for $20 an hour at 40 hours a week. I bought back all that time so that I should be doing activities in my business, working on the business, so that I am generating revenues that are at least $208 in return. How many of you know that there's things that you do in your business every single day that you could get somebody else to do for a lot less than what it's costing you to do it? The mistake here is that most entrepreneurs measure it against their own salary. It's not against your salary. Your salary is a liability to the business. The time you put into the business is your estimated hourly rate. And when you're doing it as a solopreneur, this is how we do it. Total gross sale, total gross revenue for the year in a 12-month period. We divide it by 20/80, which is the 52 weeks at 40 hours. That's going to give you your estimated hourly rate. My friends, I promise you, when you do this formula, no matter how much the company is generating in revenue, you're going to quickly learn that it's so much easier to hire other people to do the tasks that you're doing, the very low decision-making tasks, removing low decision-making fatigue, and focus your time on working on the business to generate whatever that estimated hourly rate of revenue is into the business. It's such a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. I remember when I started hiring employees that I thought, how am I going to pay them? How am I going to grow the company if there's only one of me? My growth potential was limited to my capacity. Grind is good. There's some people that say remove the grind. Get the grind is good. Hustle is good. That's what entrepreneurs do. That's great. But we can't do it all. And it hurts to say no, especially in the startup stage of your business. In that first 18 months to 36 months, that is the most crucial time in your business's maturation, in your business's evolution. 18 to 36 months is the most important time of the business. And that's usually in the point where you start hitting and maxing out, because in the beginning, you have nothing but time. But your time capacity outweighs the amount of work, the demand. Financial responsibility. Don't worry about the payroll. Don't worry about that. There's plenty of online tools. It's super easy. You don't have to go hire a payroll clerk. You can do it super easy. For the entire time that I've run all the companies that I've run, whether I was running $1.7 million a year in revenue, or whether we're running the martial arts school now at $500,000 a year in revenue, it doesn't matter. Whether you have one employee or 50 employees, it doesn't matter. I've never had a payroll company. I do the payroll myself because I want to see the numbers. There's something visceral about actually looking at the payroll numbers and seeing that money going out of the business, out of the account. I do it all QuickBooks Online. Since 2000, every bit of payroll I've ever done when I was running the $1.7 million landscape business, our payroll was running around $300,000 a year. I ran 100% of that $300,000 a year payroll myself through QuickBooks Online. Small business accountant is part of that. A bookkeeper is part of that financial responsibility. But again, entrepreneurs need to understand that the bookkeeping function I should be delegating to somebody else. If I can delegate the bookkeeping function to somebody else to work in the business tasking, that I can just get reports from the bookkeeper that tell me the vital information that I need to know while I'm working on the business, while I'm building the business, while I'm doing cost analysis of the business, when I'm job costing, when I'm estimating the work. It's easier for me to just grab a report from the bookkeeper than to have to go do the bookkeeping myself and then determine whether or not my cost accounting working. All right, let's move on to the last one. Let's see. Are there any comments? Who's with me? Let's move on to the next thing. Drop some comments, by the way. Let me know if you have any questions. If you want to spend more of your time doing the fun things, most of the fun things are actually in the activity. Looks like we've got about 56 people watching live. So drop some comments in there. Let me help you. Ask your questions. Help me help you. All righty. Let's move on to the next one. The next one is going to be understanding the strategic value employees bring in terms of skills and an innovation potential. I've learned so much about my business when I started hiring employees because they were the ones that were actually doing the work. They were the ones that were actually engaging the customers. And as they expanded the business, I knew that this was a great way for me to start learning because suddenly I realized that my employees were seeing the evolution of the business. My employees were the ones that were starting to see the vision of the business, but they were the ones actually interacting with the customers on a higher frequency. And they were the ones that can tell me right away where the landmines were. They were the ones that can tell me right away if we needed to make improvements. Because when you're doing it all yourself, you're going to start missing things. You're going to be distracted by the other things and you're going to miss the vital pieces of the puzzle that connect the business and that build trust. If trust is the greatest currency, then how are we building more trust if we have employees doing the work, but it creates a gap? So we minimize that gap by having the employees do the things that we promised they were going to do, but we also seek feedback from the employee. We seek feedback from our team members, and the employees allow us better ways to do it because they're probably more focused on doing the specific things. And chances are when we create great roles and responsibilities for our team members, they can probably do it better than we can. The rule is the 80-20 rule. When I create a role and responsibility and I put somebody in that role, they need to be able to do it at least 80% as good as I can. I set the standard. I model the behavior, then they get to go do it. But I encourage them to be innovative and find better ways to do things because they bring skills and experience to the game. They bring skills and experience to the game. When we do that, we're using the knowledge of the employee to become integrated into the culture of the company because they're adding value. When I was expanding the landscape company and we started doing construction, I was going to trainings on how to do the construction during the off season. And then I hired construction foremen. I hired construction laborers to join the team to do the construction, but they most of the time had more experience than I did. So I would go on the job site, would set the standard. I would explain how I wanted it done or explain to them what the promise to the customer was, and they would use the skills that they had to deliver on the promise made, the company made. This really helps solidify, narrow the gap between what the mutually agreed upon expectations of the customer was. When your employees, when your team members bring specific skills and specialized skills, they can be much better at it than you are. And they will improve the customer experience. When they improve the customer experience, that customer wants to tell their friends about their great experience. When you expand the business and other people are involved, it exponentially increases your brand credibility. It exponentially increases your brand recognition, exponentially increases the brand quality. So when you have high confidence in your brand, when you have high recognition of your brand, when you have high integrity of your brand, when you have these things compound. And this is how your referral system starts. And when your referral system gets going and people start referring to you and your team is able to deliver consistently on the promise based on the company's values and vision, you will experience great growth. This is why getting to a point where you have to hire your first employee, you have to recognize the indicators. One of the indicators is when you're doing the work yourself, sometimes you're limited to what your specialty is, and you're limited in the level of innovation because eyes start to get tired. I've experienced this as well. Your eyes start to get tired. They see the same thing over and over again. So how do we create the job, improve the level of interest? We do it by becoming more innovative and looking at things and trying to figure out ways we can do more things. And we do this by adding employees to the team, because when we hire people into the business, they bring us specialties, they bring us a special skill, they bring specialization, and they bring innovation. And they help you with delivering a better product. All right. So let's recap. We're going to go over the three things, the three key indicators to identifying or things that you see happening in your business that are probably warning signs or triggers that it's time to hire a new employee. All right, here it is. Identify the workload, and the workload is exceeding your time capacity, and it's time to delegate. It's time to delegate. And we're going to use the delegate, automate, eliminate model. Recognize the financial readiness of your business to sustain additional staff. Most of the time, we have the financial resources to hire. We just don't know how to hire, and we don't know how to create the value of the hire and what I am getting back in my return. And in that model, we use the estimated hourly rate. Use that formula. Understanding the strategic value an employee brings to your company. There's also something that I recognized when I was scaling my businesses. When I started adding more trucks and more equipment in the landscape company, we had more crews and I was able to expand the ability to do the work. We started attracting larger customers. You start attracting larger customers because when people see you doing things at this scale, you start showing that your business is, then people go to that. And then when people go to this, so as you expand the ability to deliver more service, the market grows, customer base grows. You get to expand and generate more revenues. And by expanding and generating more revenues, you're creating more opportunity for people. You're creating more opportunity for your business. You're creating a growth model and a growth trajectory that matches the law of expansion. Expand your capability. All right, that's all I have for today. 3 indicators of when to hire an employee. If you are struggling with the idea of when is it time to hire an employee, then jump on a call. When we got on the call, we talk a little bit about where you are, where you want to go, and how you're going to get there. We're going to talk about 2 or 3 things that we could accomplish in a 90-day period. 90 days seems to be the magic number. Everybody you talk to, things happen in 90 days. There's science behind it. A 90-day period is about the amount of time that it takes to spin something up and get the momentum going. Right? That's my job. My job is to help you get the momentum going on something that you're stuck on. And by doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you move further, faster by helping you avoid the pitfalls, telling you how to avoid the landmines, and using my experience. You're going to benefit from my experience of scaling to move further, faster, the things that caused me trouble, and you're going to be able to move quicker. And we're going to identify 2 or 3 things that we can accomplish in 90 days. One of those things may be, what is my time capacity and how do I take the on the business and in the business and determine if I was spending less time working in the business, how can I spend more time working on the business? And if even I spent less time working in the business, what allows me to spend more time working on the business would mean I can generate more sales. If I can generate more sales and have the people who are working in the business do more of the work while I'm generating more work for them, the company's going to grow. They're going to benefit. I'm going to benefit. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I'm stuck. I've hit a barrier. I hit a ceiling. I hit a plateau because I can't grow beyond it, because every time I try to expand beyond it, my time capacity is limited and my brand takes a hit for it. So let's talk about that. The good thing is you're going to get actionable one-on-one coaching. So once we determine what it is that we're going to work on, if the what is it we're going to work on is hiring your first employee, we're going to go through everything you need to do, from what is the role and responsibility going to look like? How are we going to hire them? What's the hiring process? How are we going to pay them? All the things we need. And then we're going to do the hire, and then we're going to put them to work. And then you're going to move on to the next thing. You're going to move on to, okay, now that I bought my time back, how do I spend more time working on the business instead of working in the business? If you're struggling with hiring an employee, ask yourself this question: how much of what goes on in your business every single day relies on you? Because if it relies on you and it doesn't get done, if you don't do it because you're the only one doing all the work, you don't own a business, you own a job. It's right out of Gerber. That's right out of the E-Myth Revised, right? That's exactly what he tells you. He says, if you are doing activities in your business that require you to do them, you own a job. If you want to expand from just owning a job, get other people doing the job so that you could be a business owner and run the business and spend more time working on the business. You're probably experiencing this because people are asking you to do more work and you're back where you were when you started. You're saying no because you lack the capacity to do it based solely on hiring employees. Then jump on the call, because I can help you, because I've done it. I've done it repeatedly. I started the landscape company by myself. One truck, one trailer, me. Drew that up, 18 full-time employees. I started the martial arts school all by myself. Training while I had a full-time job, working evenings, teaching all the classes myself. We grew. I started hiring people. The first hire I made was not an instructor on the mat. The first hire I made was a customer service manager to work the back office, to take off of my plate all the tasks that were sucking up my time and preventing me from doing the things that I needed to do to continue to grow the business. And now I'm here where I'm coaching people, and I'm already starting to get to the point where I want to reach more people. So what I'm sharing with you is not just basic principles, not just best practice, but what I'm sharing with you are things that I've done over and over again successfully by identifying these 3 indicators: time capacity, financial, and strategic value, the short version. And that's how I did it. All right. You want to jump on a call? If you know somebody who can use this, share it or repost it or mention them in the comments, and we'll get on a call. Or just write hi in the write anything in the comments is going to get my attention that knows, or just direct message me, and I promise I will find time to get on a call with you and talk about how to get you to hire your first employee. And I promise you're going to thank me for it later because I thank myself for letting go of some of the stuff that I was doing all myself. See you next time.